Football has always featured heavily in the British political landscape, but this week those discussions have come to a head over a shirt. Fans and politicians are wading into the debate about the new England football men's kit, which has stirred up questions of identity, race and political leanings. It all started when Nike launched an updated shirt for the Euro 2024 tournament that starts in June. The design has stirred controversy thanks to what Nike calls a playful update to the St George's cross, usually a red cross on a white background. Nike has added navy, light blue and purple to the traditional red, with the cross featuring at the back of the shirt's collar. Now, despite the company's intentions, the changes have sparked fury from some who see it as disrespectful to the symbol of England, and others who argue that it is an important reflection of a diverse society. There's also the cost factor. Nike's Euros 2024 kit, the authentic version, is priced at almost £125 for adults. That is about $158 if you want to be able to wear what the players on the pitch are wearing. Now, the opposition leader, Keir Starmer, is calling on Nike to reconsider its design, adding that the flag doesn't need to be changed. He has been joined by other Westminster political voices, including the UK's Culture Secretary Lucy Fraser, and even the Prime Minister, who is appealing to the brand not to change the England flag. Now, we've been discussing this fury with someone who knows a fair bit about the relationship between sports and identity. Eniola Aluko is a British-Nigerian football executive, broadcaster and former player herself. She won 102 England caps during her career, which spanned from 2001 to 2019. Aluko is no stranger to being on the receiving end of abuse either. In 2018, she accused the England women's team manager at the time, Mark Sampson, of directing racist remarks towards her. And more recently, Aluko faced what many saw as deeply offensive criticism from fellow pundit and retired player Joey Barton. Bloomberg's James Woolcock and I began our conversation by asking Aluko what she thinks of Nike's new kit for England's men's squad for the Euros 2024.
We live in a world where brands are changing kits all the time, you know, in a playful, fashionable way that is to be worn by many diverse groups of people who support the England teams. You know, it's not a surprise to me to see this. The England team, particularly the men's team, is incredibly diverse and incredibly inclusive. So why would a flag, you know, a playful update on a flag not reflect that? I think what we're seeing is what's happening in the UK right now, which is just very sort of polarised, divisive, nationalistic sentiments coming out against any form of inclusivity or any form of diversity that is prominent in sports, and that's what I think this is about.
So you don't agree then with, you know, Keir Starmer saying that actually it's not something that the fans want? Others have said this, that it's not something that the fans are looking for. You disagree with that?
Well, I mean, I don't think a lot of shirts have always been created based on what the fans want. You know, it's, you know, Nike have decided to design this based on unifying fans, and you know, I think what we're hearing is certain fans don't want it. You know, because I'm an England fan, that doesn't represent me. I think it's fine. So I think we give prominence sometimes to what certain fans are saying and not what others. If you did a whole poll of England fans across the country, it might turn out that people aren't bothered about the playful update.
I feel like we've identified the two sort of words that matter here, which are representation and unity. Because, I mean, Keir Starmer, he told The Sun that this sort of symbol is a unifier, sort of the original, unplayed with sort of St George's cross. And you say, kind of in some ways, it's about representing the Nike sort of symbol is trying to represent a broader array of people. I mean, This is kind of the question of what is that relationship between identity and symbols? I don't know, like, do you think that the flag needs to remain the same to speak to a broader range of people, or do you feel that like this was a completely understandable thing to do? Because, I mean, do you see what Keir Starmer is aiming at there?
Well, I think Keir Starmer would also understand that the flag, the St George's flag, in the way that the original St George's flag, actually creates a certain negative emotion for some people too, right? In terms of the nationalistic connotations to it. Now, I live in England and have done my whole life as a black woman. Sometimes that flag has been used, to support racist sentiments against me. So at the end of the day, whether it's the original St George's flag or the updated version that is meant to unify and represent diversity inclusion for what is a diverse and inclusive United Kingdom, whether people like it or not, we have a diverse and inclusive United Kingdom full of people who represent the country, who are not, who are, immigrants, including the people who play on the pitch and represent England. So I don't see why this is so far off it. The people on the pitch, the England men's team on the pitch, who everybody's going to be supporting in the summer, are made up of a diverse range of men.
Yeah,
so the flag represents that.
Okay, and indeed, I think it is, quite a fascinating fact. I mean, 1 in 6 people in the UK now are people, who started life somewhere else, born somewhere else, and are now in the UK. So the UK is a very diverse country, as you say. You played under the St George's Cross 102 times. How important to you then is it as a symbol? Because is it meaningful? Does it raise something important for you that it's changed? Is it, how do you see that? Were you uncomfortable using that flag? As you say, a lot of people see the St George's Cross, as you say, is sometimes quite conflicted.
Well, I was very proud to represent England. I don't want to make it. I want to be very clear about that. I was very proud to play for England, and the flag was something that I wore on my shirt very proudly, like everybody else. It wasn't something, though, that I felt could never, ever be changed. Passport colours just changed recently, and, we all have to get on with it. I think, whether the flag stays in its original state, whether it changes, I think ultimately there's a deeper issue here, which is diversity and inclusion in the United Kingdom. And some, Nike is making an attempt to reflect that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think that things changing should mean that, it should never be done. The flag has changed. It's a playful update to represent diversity and inclusion in this country. The players on the pitch represent that too, by the way. And I think it's healthy. I think it's important to reflect that. Now, if they want to change it back to the original colour, fine. There's lots of people that think that's great too. But let's not, demonise diversity and inclusion. Let's not keep demonizing those changes, because it's very dangerous when you start saying anything that represents diversity and inclusion is woke, anything that represents diversity and inclusion is bad. That makes somebody like me, a black woman who's represented England 102 times, feel negative. That's a negative message to somebody like me.
And indeed, it's subtle, isn't it? It's quite layered, because Nike also says this is both about inclusivity and about diversity, but also about throwing back and recalling England's history, because they've talked about those colours being the training gear that was worn by the 1966 England World Cup winning team, at least in their training. So they also kind of have brought in a number of elements. So it's layered, isn't it, James?
It is. I mean, they would sort of point to that kit being sort of a historical thing before they would bring up diversity, Caroline. I mean, look, you are an extremely storied England player, but you're also a football executive. You have a career outside of just playing the game. Do you see this as good business for Nike and for the England team?
Well, I think that will depend on the amount of people that want to buy the shirt without, not necessarily, having any opposition to the change of the flag. I mean, that's yet to see. I know there's a petition out against this. But, I think sometimes we amplify the loud minority, forgetting that actually there's lots of people like me who don't really, don't put that much emphasis on the flag on the back of the shirt. We just support England, as we always have done, and we support the diverse players on the pitch, and that's what they represent. So whether it's a good business case, I don't know. But look, in sport, shirts are updated all of the time. Like literally all the time. So
get it into perspective.
Like, oh my God. Yeah, like it's not like, oh my God, what are Nike doing? Like they've changed the shirt, like as football shirts are changed all the time. And guess what? When football shirts are changed, lots of fans sometimes don't like it, and they make that known. This feels no different to me. It just seems like there's quite a nationalistic element to it that I think we need to really, really be careful of.
Yeah. Look, this kit is for the Euros 2024. Now, the last championship saw England players like Marcus Rashford receive a torrent of racist abuse after England lost in that final. Do you think that, how much is English football moving on with its problem with racism? There was a lot of support for Rashford, but the racist abuse was so significant. How much is that changing, do you think, in English football?
I don't think it's changing. I think it's still there. And you wouldn't be surprised that, if we were to do an analysis of the same people who are, very angry about the diversity inclusive flag are the same people that probably go to England games and when Marcus Rashford or Bukayo Saka misses a penalty, racially abuse him. I think there's a link there. And that's just the reality. That's the stone cold reality of it. Now, what happens to those people when they decide to racially abuse English players is what I care more about. So punishments, consequences, bans. You can never come to an England game again. If you're online racially abusing players, you will be arrested, and the digital police will find you. That's what I care about, and that's where I think progress has to be made and continue to be made to make sure that we are punishing and we are highlighting that there is no tolerance whatsoever for racism against England players who represent the country.
Eniola, I want to come back to something you were saying about who this whole conversation is speaking to. And you were saying you weren't sure that Keir Starmer is speaking to black women like you. We've been talking a lot on this podcast in recent weeks about the position of women of colour in public life. We've recently seen comments from Tory donor Frank Hester about Diane Abbott. We've seen the Doreen Lawrence saying that she, as Labour's race advisor, doesn't feel listened to. Do you feel, to ask you directly, that Keir Starmer is speaking to people like you?
Yeah, I think Keir Starmer, I like Keir Starmer. I think a lot of what he has said in terms of what the direction of the country is I agree with it. It's valid. I think when it comes to race relations, there's probably more agreement across party than there is disagreement. And I think the recent recognition that actually it is absolutely unacceptable to have Tory donor Frank Hester suggesting that Diane Abbott, a black woman in public life, should be shot. That in itself means that I feel safe or safer that politicians are calling it out for what it is and are suggesting that consequences need to come of it. So there are always things that you'll disagree on with politics, and there's some things you agree on, and that's where I stand with Keir Starmer. I think there's some great things that he says. On this occasion, with regards to the flag, I don't agree, because I don't think there's anything wrong with representing diversity and inclusion in the UK. It's a very important issue, and as I said, to go back to it, the players on the pitch that we're going to be cheering represent diversity and inclusion.
On that, though, this whole debate, you yourself have faced a lot of abuse in the public, just in recent weeks, in fact. We've seen, MPs like Diane Abbott do get massive amounts of public abuse. As a high-profile, successful black woman, do you think we need to change the way we have these kinds of conversations, especially as we head into a general election where there's going to be massive amounts of social media conversations, lots of abuse, fake news thrown around? Do you think we need to have a conversation about how we address that, deal with it, what kind of laws there are around it?
Well, I don't actually think you can deal with these things without calling it out and without amplifying it to some extent. That's the only way that the people guilty of it held responsible. So it's part of my strategy and tactic often, particularly online, to expose these people and to say, well, here we are, this man or this woman has said, this racist thing to me. Have a look at it. Everybody have a look. And then that person, quickly deletes their account or deletes the comment. So, in life, if you do something wrong and you face the consequences of it, everybody else looks at that and goes, well, I'm not going to do that. And that's where we're at. It is too easy at this moment in time, particularly on X, on social media, to racially abuse, use sexist and misogynistic language towards black women. And the only way to deal with that is to identify who these people are hiding behind these accounts, to call it out, and so everybody understands what racism is and everybody understands what sexism and misogyny is, and hold those people responsible and accountable.
That was Eniola Aluko, who is the British-Nigerian football former player, currently executive and broadcaster, speaking to us on Bloomberg Radio, to Bloomberg's James Woolcock and I.